Hello, bonsoir, annyeonghaseyo. Welcome to the 28th Rendezvous with Madness Festival. My name is Scott Miller-Berry. I'm Managing Director at Workman Arts, presenters of Rendezvous with Madness, and I'm a member of the Film Programming Committee. Welcome to the discussion for the documentary Nocturne by Guangzhou Jiang. We're very grateful to be joined by our moderator, Kat Singer, alongside Azed Majeed and Aidan Lee, who will be discussing the film tonight. Thank you to our ASL interpreter from Closed Caption Services and ASL interpretation from Toronto Sign Language Interpreter Services. Rendezvous with Madness would like to acknowledge the Indigenous lands on which we are presently located. Toronto comes from the Mohawk word tukaranto, which can be loosely translated as where the trees meet the water. It's part of the traditional territories of many nations, the Huron-Wendat, the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, and the Mississaugas of the Credit. Rendezvous with Madness and Workman Arts recognizes that this is an ongoing dialogue, and acknowledgement is just that, an acknowledgement. We are very grateful to live and work on this land with people who are both indigenous to Turtle Island and those from all over the world. Rendezvous and Workman Arts values inclusivity, anti-oppression, and safety at all levels. We all have a role to play in maintaining these spirits. Please see our statement and our code of conduct on our website at workmanarts.com, and please ensure that you're treating everybody with respect. We have an active listener joining us, Christine. Christine is here on the call, and Christine is available. There's Christine. Should you require support this evening, please get in touch with Christine directly at 289-779-4114 or by email at christine.saleek, CHRISTEN.SALIK @gmail.com. You can contact by phone or text. This information for our virtual active listener is available on the Rendezvous webpage for the film Nocturne in the black box on the right. At Rendezvous, we do value making time to discuss difficult content and issues, but we also respect that you will know your own limits and you'll seek out any support should you require it. We'd like to thank our co-presenters for Nocturne, the Toronto Korean Film Festival, the Real Abilities Film Festival, and the Royal Conservatory of Music in Toronto. We would love to hear your questions and comments tonight. So during the discussion, if you'd like to ask a question or a comment, you can type it into the chat box on the upper right-hand side of your screen. This is a friendly reminder. If you're watching full screen, you will need to minimize to see the chat box on the upper right-hand side. Tonight's discussion is held in English with simultaneous ASL interpretation and live captions. You can turn on live captions at the bottom of your screen. Our moderator, Kat, will choose questions tonight for our panel. We do apologize in advance if we're not able to get to your question within the allotted time, which is approximately 30 to 45 minutes. I'd like to now turn things over to Kat, our moderator, to begin the discussion. Thank you and enjoy.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to watch our panel. My name is Kat Singer, and I'm a multimedia artist, activist, educator, and a neurodiversity affirming mental health professional based in Toronto. So today we have two guests, Azed Majeed and Aidan Lee. Aidan is a young artist, and Azed is a filmmaker and a father. And I'm going to let them introduce themselves and share their relationship to autism. So Azed, if you'd like to go first.
Sure. Thanks, Kat. Happy to be here. Thank you for having me. My name is Azed Majeed. Yeah, I am a filmmaker. I work in television as my job. I work as a TV producer. And yes, my relationship to autism is that I have a wonderful son, my son Django, who's 17, who is on the ASD spectrum. So yeah, very intimate with at least his kind of autism. And this is a big thing with autism, is that there's so many different kinds of autism, right? So I think there's a lot of confusion out there that people don't know about, you know, how many different kinds of autistic people there are, and it's just a huge range. So that's my relationship to autism and to films.
Amazing, thank you. And Aidan, if you would like to introduce yourself.
I think you're muted, Aidan.
I got it.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Aidan. I'm 16 years old. Oh, sorry, 17 years old. I just turned 17. But I was born with autism, ADHD, and anxiety. But I mean, if you add Aidan as well and artist, you got 5, but technically just subtract 1, so artist, and you got quadruple A's. So it's very nice to talk to everyone. So thank you.
Thank you, Aidan. So films like Nocturne, similar to Juna's Planet, shown at Rendezvous last year, present a tragic narrative of struggle, hopelessness, and alienation. And the young man that story is based on, and I have a hard time calling them main characters because they're given very little agency in their own story. They're being observed almost clinically, and they're being talked about. So sometimes they are described as a burden to their families and society as a whole within earshot. And a lot of times their attempts of communicating are dismissed, and they're forced to perform behaviors that others expect from them. So Seon-ho's mother, the mother of the main character in the film, sometimes she literally puts words in his mouth, getting him to repeat what she says. And the attitude that is shown in these films about autism unfortunately mirrors perceptions and attitudes about autism that some of them are unique to the Korean cultural context, and some are much more universal. So I've noticed that films like this tend to be very polarizing, meaning that different people have different opinions and feelings about these films. So for me personally, this particular film was painful to watch because I could only take it 10 minutes at a time because of my own experiences and being an autistic person and seeing some things like I've described before. For people who have been in caregiving roles, these films tend to be validating of their experience and struggles with not being supported maybe in their caregiving roles, and struggling with society that refuses to accept and accommodate their children and themselves. So a lot of times people see their struggles, people in caregiving roles see the struggles reflected in their innermost feelings, like frustration, grief, etc., voiced, which normalizes their experience. So that being said, I don't want to put my interpretation of the film and my experience with the film onto the participants' experience with the film. So I want to put the question out here to the participants about how you felt about this movie and which characters or character you could relate to and why, because I don't want to assume. So I'm gonna let, this time I'm gonna let Aidan start, if that's okay.
Well, let me tell you first that this movie was a very emotional movie for me. You know, as well as you, Kat. It took me around like a week and a bit to fully finish this movie, and you know, for me, I gotta say, it proved to me that, you know, humans are very complex. There are so many stories within us. From the mother, you see one side. From the older brother, you see another side. From the younger brother, you see another side. From the director, you see even another side. And from the viewer yourself, you see yet another side. You got a picture, right? You know, there's lots of different ways to see this and different kind of like views. But getting back on track, the second part of the question was which characters relate to me and why? Now, most would think that, you know, Song-ho is who I relate to the most. And I mean, he has autism and I have autism, But this complexity that we were talking about also applies here. I relate to all of them in a different way. I relate to the mother as she tries her very best to give attention to both of her kids. In a way, I relate to Jianji as he felt frustrated that he wasn't getting the same attention. He wanted more from his brother. And I relate to Song Ho as he lived to play music in his own way. He tried to find a way to communicate with the world. His music, I would say, is what I would be most related to. Like, since it's a form of art, so music is the best way I relate to.
Thank you so much, Aidan. So, Azed, how about you?
Yeah, Aidan, that was excellent. I really agree with a lot of what Aidan is saying, and what you said as well, Kat. It was a really good movie. I thought it was well done. Some of the issues that you guys are talking about, I also understand that and kind of get that. It's difficult to portray autism because, as I said before, it's just such a wide spectrum. So I thought the movie was really good at capturing what life is like, maybe for families who go through, everybody's going to go through different kinds of responses to having a brother or a son on the spectrum. And I thought they captured that well. I kind of related to all of them, to be honest, sorry, the names are slipping my mind now. The main boy's name again was, can somebody help me out?
Song Ho?
Sorry?
Song Ho.
Song Ho, exactly. I related to him, obviously, because he reminded me a lot of my son. My son is less verbal, and also, this is the other thing about movies to do with autism. A lot of the times they focus on people with autism who have savant-ism, like this boy has, because I think that's easier for people to look at in some ways, and there's this kind of mystical quality about it, whereas there's a lot of people on the spectrum who don't have the special talent, or it's sort of the Rain Man syndrome, I call it, right? And I don't see as much attention being put on those people with autism, because I think there's a tendency to kind of just dismiss them. Because if somebody can perform or get up there and do something, and you go, wow, it's great. And I'm not taking anything away from that, because I think it is great, but just to let everybody know that there are a lot of people on the spectrum who don't really function in the same way at all, right? They don't. And I think, Kat, you were mentioning something about this, that the mother in the movie is really training this boy, this son of hers, to fit in. And we can talk about that. I mean, we go through that with my son too. This idea of, are we trying to put a square peg in a round hole kind of thing, right? Are we trying to bring our kids into the society, right? Therefore teach them all these different things about how to behave, right? Or are we going to try to make society kind of try to come more towards our kids or people that we know who are on the spectrum? It's a very difficult balance to achieve.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Azed, and you've made a really excellent point. So you call Sanho a boy, and in the movie, I think he is, probably for the entire film, he's legal adult technically. And I think the tendency that we have to infantilize or like treat like children people who are on the autism spectrum, it's a cultural thing. So even those of us who might have a lot more, let's say, verbal ability in some situations and in some contexts, or like different abilities, a lot of times we are not like being asked, like we are also being treated like children. And for me, for many, many years, as a mental health professional, I felt like I had to be in the closet about being on the spectrum, because there is no way that people would respect me or see that I was, that I was an adult, despite, despite challenges and like the sensory issues that I might have, or the accommodation needs. And I think that's, yeah, I think that showing the way that a lot of films focus on, one picture of autism, you mentioned, it's really, really, really true. It's mostly folks that would be considered, although I don't believe in functioning labels, so-called lower functioning. A lot of times they either have a savant ability, or sometimes, last year, the John Has Planet, it wasn't really about, he didn't appear to have any special savant abilities, and it was a lot about community and the parents and the caregivers. So it's interesting how, like, there's a desire to make the society accept people, but the people on the spectrum are still portrayed as children, making it very, very difficult for people like me, for example, to come out and say, hey, I experienced some of those things too. And, I grew up, if my parents believed in what the doctor said I would be like, I would never be here in this position facilitating for my own, like I was lucky that my parents did not accept what was being said about me and tried to create a different story for me. Not always well, but anyway, enough about me and the movie. I mean, enough about me. Let's go back to the movie. So Aidan, this question is mainly for you, but Azed can also respond. So you're a young person working towards a career in the arts, and I assume your family supports and encourages you. So how do you feel about the mother's choice to pursue a music career for Song-ho?
I feel that, it's very important. Well, here's the thing, pursuing this, as I said before, his way of speaking and his, because the music is his way of communicating to people. Near the end of the film, the brother was able to communicate with the younger brother, because he said that he was able to communicate with his older brother because music helped him connect together. And it is a fact that the arts can help people communicate with each other. So I feel like it's very important. My family supports my art, and at the age of 3, I wasn't able to speak myself. The age of 4. And the reason why I got into art was a way for me to, let that emotion out, to actually, explain how I felt. And after letting all of that emotion out, I was able to speak. And, I'm very glad that he was able to continue his passion to do it. It's important that we have these things, have his way of communication. We don't want to take that away from him.
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't know whether you have brothers or sisters, Aidan, but our family kind of mirrors the family in the movie, except that I'm here too. In the movie, there's no father, or he's mentioned, but you never see him. But I also have an older son who's neurotypical, who's about 3 years older than Django, who's 17. So my son Ishmael is 21. And the relationship between the brothers, I mean, between my two sons, there's not that same level of animosity. Well, I wouldn't say animosity is maybe too strong, but tension, right? In the movie, the older brother feels very rejected by the mother's constant attention towards Sung-ho, right? So he feels abandoned, and he kind of resents the autism even, right? And like the fact that he can't communicate with him and stuff. My older son Ishmael is lovely with Django, and they have a great relationship. But he has expressed, frustration that it's not just like he can't just have a conversation with his brother. He can't just hang out with his brother. It's difficult going out with Django, for example, as a family. You have to be willing to accept you're going to get a lot of stares. You're going to get people, kind of maybe saying something to you, looking at you like you're weird, and you're an oddball and all that kind of stuff. And it's not comfortable. It takes a long time to get used to it. To have this idea that, okay, look, everybody here is a citizen and everybody here has rights. And, even if my son can be loud and make weird noises and act strange, he has every right to be here. But it's difficult for a lot of people to get that, right? You can see some paintings behind me. My son Django does those paintings with me and with my wife sometimes as well. So we do try to use art as well. It's a little bit more difficult with so-called, as you put it, low functioning. Hate that term, but yes, that's what they say. Because the attention span is difficult to keep them focused. But art is such an important part of everybody's life, right? It just helps us all deal. And I think during this pandemic, especially, we're all either creating or, partaking of more art. And music is really important to us in this family. We all play instruments. Django sings. So yeah, I like the way the movie really highlights art as a kind of means of communication that's nonverbal and not typical. And it was a beautiful ending when they were able to come together and play together. Yeah.
I definitely agree. I myself have siblings, and I bet they feel that as well. And it's important to know that even though you have, because my siblings always tell me, no matter what anybody says, you shouldn't let that get you down. So we should always know that even if somebody says something, we should always give each other love and passion, and just like make sure that we respect everyone. We shouldn't put people in, and judge people. Everyone, there should be a no judgment zone. It should be all free. It should all be about just love and compassion. That's the best thing I can say.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's my personal experience in terms of watching someone, like I'm seeing your art, Aidan, and you get to improvise, and I don't know what professional training you've received from people, like if you were taught to make art, if you were compelled to make art. The thing with Songho that I find really kind of uncomfortable for me is his labor is could possibly be exploited because he is performing labor, and he is getting he is doing that as a professional career. So I feel like he almost can't say no. He has to show up. He has to play those concerts. The way that I use art in my own life to express myself and to use for self-regulation, and the way I use art with my clients, it's never really scripted like that. I use a lot of improvisation, and I don't, I let art come to me, and I invite art to come to others when it's time for them to do that. So being forced to do something that you enjoy as a career is one thing. And also I have seen that the lack of accessibility in terms of the audience, when I was watching the audience clap and scream, I was like, oh my God, if I was on that stage, I would want to disappear. And I could see the discomfort on Sonho's face when that was happening, and all of the gestures, like bowing, like closing the shirt, like the vest, all of that stuff. I feel like, isn't that wouldn't that be kind of destroying his passion? I really loved the way the movie ended and how the brothers did come together and communicate. And like, I really did love the ending of the movie, but the whole movie before the ending, I kept thinking, like, this is difficult. This isn't, this is, how are you turning something that he supposedly loves when he was with his instructor? For example, like the music instructor, the instructor was berating him and saying, you're not practicing enough and you're bad. Like, how is this the same as what we do with art? So if anyone wants to comment, please feel free.
Go ahead, Aidan. Yeah.
I just want to say, I myself did get any training. I really just started off with a bunch of few things at the start. I tried sports. I tried knitting. Knitting was a complete disaster. That was very.
It's tough, yeah.
But art, it just comes straight from the heart. That's what I have to say. It's not like something where you get forced to do it. It's more what comes from the heart. If I didn't want to paint, I just wouldn't paint. That's the best thing. And I bet for Song Ho, if he didn't want to play the piano, he just wouldn't want to play the piano. But at times I do need to paint because it's my way of communication. And for him, his piano and that was his way of, letting his emotions out, letting it be free. So, I feel like it's something that was important. It's something important to him. That's what makes Song Ho.
Yeah, I agree. I can kind of see, again, both points here. I mean, I kind of understand what Kat is saying. There were parts in the movie that I was really troubled, both by his mother and by other people around him, like the teacher you mentioned. There seemed to be a kind of lack of compassion sometimes and a kind of shaming that was used as a method to get him to comply, which I think, I can, in my most generous spirit, I could say, yes, I understand the impulse there is probably a good one, but it's a style that is very conforming. It's very much like, there's only this much latitude, and if you're like, there were times when he was making sounds and noises, and the guy said, what are you, a baby or a man, right, or an adult? And I just thought that kind of language was really troubling, right? So yeah, again, I don't know how cultural that is or what, but I have seen stuff like that happen here too. Not so much with me or with us, but we have made mistakes as well as parents. You're going through it the first time. You don't know always. It's really difficult to know how to navigate when you have a child on the spectrum. Because it's not like there's a lot of resources out there, and it's not like there's a map or a guidebook that comes with this child, right? So you make mistakes for sure. And I think for a long time, me personally, I think I was trying more to get him to fit more into the society at large. And my wife Tina was very instrumental in showing me how to accept Django for who he is, and not try to constantly make him better. But that's a process, right? And I don't know. The one thing about the mother that was interesting was she seemed very dedicated, but it seemed sometimes like where I sympathized with her was she kept saying, when I die, what's going to happen to Sung Ho? And I have definitely those feelings too about my son. And me and my wife have talked about that. And it's a real worry for a lot of parents who have kids on the spectrum who can't function or care for themselves, right? Where I didn't sympathize so much with her was, I was never sure fully whether Sung Ho really wanted to be playing this music, or this was just something that his mother saw as a kind of means for him to achieve some kind of placement in the world. It was an interesting metaphor. It was one of my favorite parts of the movie was when the brother kept saying she's like at a slot machine and she keeps putting in the coins and she can never stop, because if she stops, she has to say, oh, I've wasted all this time and money on this one thing. So she just has to keep doubling down and hope for the jackpot, right? So I understand that was a bit of an issue with me with the mother, but I also really sympathized with her.
If I can have one thing, I just want to say this. In life, there's good things and there's bad things. There's bad people, there's good people, there's bad teachers, there's good teachers. You know, there's some bad times in life and there's good times in life. But, you know, the most important thing is that it's life. There's always good times and there's always bad times.
For sure. And I want to make sure that we get to the good part. So I'm going to skip some of the questions that I've prepared because I want to make sure that we get to share what starts some of the things that you liked about the film. And I'm going to just quickly go first. So some of the things I really liked about the film is to watch the genuine care and interaction between the two brothers when they're away on the trip. I can see Song-ho being a lot more spontaneous with what he says to his brother. He's not repeating, the mother is not there. And I loved how the younger brother was really, really protective of the older brother, but in a caring way. And he was just really he took great care of the brother, and he allowed him agency when he was saying, can you shave by yourself? And at first Song-ho wasn't sure, but the brother encouraged him and helped Song-ho self-empower to shave by himself, which he might never have done otherwise. And the brother wasn't dragging Song-ho around that was the first time in the movie that I saw that Song-ho actually enjoyed communicating with music. So that was a great ending for me. And also, I'm an immigrant from Russia, so I saw some scenes of St. Petersburg that were really, really sweet to me, and just seeing certain funny things like the prayer sheet. I recognized the culture, and it was so heartwarming and surprising to discover something that I'm familiar with having nothing to do with autism, in the film. So these are my kind of glimmer moments. So to avoid people talking over each other, I'm gonna let Aidan, if you would like to go first about what you liked about the film.
I feel like there was a lot of good points. During the beginning, it was a very sad, a very emotional moment. But actually, near the end, I was able to actually fully watch the movie around that point. But afterwards, as soon as they were, out, they were doing their thing, I felt like the brothers were just really getting along together. They were creating that bond. They were actually getting to know each other. They were feeling the younger brother finally was understanding what his brother was talking about sometimes. He finally, got to talk about or he got to express what he was feeling. At times, whenever he would, get frustrated, the brother was there, give him a pat on the back and just calm him down. I just felt like it was so heartwarming because I was scared they were going to always be upset with each other. They were going to just keep clashing. But at the end, they understood each other, and, they felt like brothers. It felt like they were actually brothers.
Yeah, I totally get that read. Django's is down here with us now. Maybe he'll come and say hi. You want to come and say hi? Django loves to go for drives. Yeah, I love that ending as well. I really liked the movie. I thought it was a little confusing at times, and maybe that was deliberate, I don't know, in terms of how long the duration of the movie was. At the end of it, my wife was like, oh, it's like 10 years. Because when you start out, I know that Sang-ho is more of a teenager, I think, and then, or early 20s maybe, and then at one point he says, I'm 34, and I was like, oh, it's gone. And you can see, obviously, the mother ages. So I don't know exactly how long they filmed, but it was interesting that the filmmaker never demarcated time like that. And so in many ways, I thought that the movie kind of gave you an experience of a timelessness, which was interesting. It tried to put you right in the position of, kind of being a little disoriented and not knowing where you were exactly. You didn't know where the father was. You didn't know why the brother was in Italy and suddenly, and they didn't explain a lot, which I actually thought was interesting. Because I think it gave you a bit of an experience of what it might like to have a not so typical kind of experience with time. And I know with Django, he has some processing delays and time and memory issues that are, I think the movie was trying to get at that. And I think it did it a little bit because I was sometimes going, where am I, kind of lost. I mean, I thought, again, everything that Aidan was saying, I agree with. It was a very moving ending. I really agree with Kat too that that shaving scene was really important because the way he did it, the way that the film did it was they showed the mother doing it, and she was always very understandably, but she was really always there, right? She was like always washing him, doing everything for him, pulling him. The brother treated him more like an independent person. So even though there are times when the brother seems a bit harsh and a little mean, and there are stories of him hitting him and stuff like that, ultimately it was better that in a way that the brother was left with him, because it did allow him to treat him more like an independent person, which showed you another side of Sang-ho, right? That he was actually capable of being without the mother and doing just fine, right? So that's a good lesson for all of us, I guess, parents as well, because we can, I think, we can hover a little too much over kids who are special, right? And have special needs. We're definitely guilty of doing that a lot of the time. So it's a good lesson to say, maybe you just need to give some latitude to these kids and not, as you said, Kat, infantilize, which is something I think happens a lot.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Azed. So we do have a little bit of time for one more question or maybe two. So I'm going to ask you a question that I was thinking about earlier. So Aidan, the first question is for you. So would you participate in a film that's about you? And what would you want the film's message to be if you were to participate in a film that is?
I don't know. Well, okay, if we really think about a film like this, but if it was me, a documentary film like this would take kind of like several years, and you could definitely see that the director was like very close, like literally he was part of the part of their family. Like, I don't know, how are you gonna record me while I'm sleeping? Like, what? How close are we getting? Are we gonna be really close? Would he have directors? Because I feel like each director he had would be a little bit of more anxiety. But if I was able to produce a movie, and what the message would probably be under the lines of people with disabilities. It's more than just a specifically labeled box that says autism. We can't just all put everyone in the same box, because autism or disabilities on their own are a much bigger scale than that. Like literally hundreds of thousands of categories. And, some people don't want to do that kind of, so like for me, I wouldn't want to select what kind of colored Lego blocks are in this pack of Lego. Like, that would take too much time. I'm just gonna put all the Lego in one box. But it does take some effort, and there are some people who do like to research this kind of thing. With dolphins, we kind of like research how dolphins interact with each other. Sometimes it's audio, sometimes they do like little high fives with each other. And I really want people to like study people with disabilities as well, because it's much more wider. You gotta really just explain about it. You gotta.
Thank you, Aidan, so much. I think like the idea is like you could theoretically direct your own movie if you wanted to and not have it take 10 years. But I just wanted to rush into a very quick question for Azed. So Azed, you recently made a documentary about life with Django. And can you tell us quickly, I don't want to rush you, but I also do.
Okay.
So could you tell us a little bit about what that experience was like for you, like telling the story of your son?
Right. So, well, it was a documentary short we made for a conference for care workers. So we were asked, Django had gone to this place here in Toronto for early childhood education called Surrey Place, and they know the family, and they knew that I was in film, so they asked me to put together something for this conference. So we did. And what was it like? It was difficult, I would say, because you have to now go through the whole thing, the whole story, and putting it together in a kind of compressed way like that can be difficult, because you start to see everything only through this one lens, right? And all the other parts of your life are not there, right? So you're just thinking about this child, and this child who was born with special needs and is on the spectrum, and all. So when it's so narrowly focused like that, it can become a little bit more heartbreaking, I think. Even though we try to convey, what a delight he is, and what a delightful person he is, and how much he's really enriched our lives. And we talk about the journey we go through as his family, going through various stages of, I kind of compared it to that book called On Death and Dying, which is all about how people go through different stages of mourning. And, you go through like anger, denial, bargaining, and then acceptance at the end, right? And I think for the families, there's a kind of process that's like that. So this film that I made was sort of like a little bit about that. Also highlights Django's great singing skills. So.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Azed, and thank you, Aidan. I'm really honored to have both of you here and contribute your perspective about the movie. You have really enriched my experience and also changed my mind about certain things. So I really appreciate having had you here and having this discussion. So we are coming to a close. We experienced a little bit of timelessness that Azed was talking about.
It's very nice, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to, unless folks have like closing comments, I'm going to let Scott take it away and close the panel.
Yes. Any final thoughts? Anyone?
Not really. Thank you for doing this and having me back a second year. And Rendezvous with Madness, congratulations. Your programming is really inclusive and compassionate. So I thank you very much for your programming.
And I also want to say thank you so much for inviting me and Azed on to be panelists, because being a panelist is such an honor. So I gotta say thank you so much.
It was great meeting you, Aidan.
It was great meeting you.
On behalf of Rendezvous, just want to thank Aidan, Azed, and Kat for your time, for your honesty, for your directness. We really do champion discussions that are sometimes full of different responses and different opinions and feelings, and I say this as a filmmaker and a cinephile, like, very few films are perfect. And I really appreciated your insights and your criticisms and your reflections about Nocturne. I just want to remind the audience that Rendezvous still has 3 more days in terms of films and some artist talks, and our virtual tour of our exhibition is online until Sunday night. There's some beautiful films this weekend, and we hope that you'll come back, check things out. Everything is pay what you can or free. We also will be sending everyone an audience survey by email after tonight who attended Nocturne. We would really encourage you to take a moment to fill out the survey and give us your feedback. Good, bad, indifferent, suggestions, otherwise. We welcome all of it. And just want to thank our ASL interpreter and our captioner and our supportive listener, Christine. Christine's available after the program for a bit if you'd like to reach out to Christine. And again, on behalf of Rendezvous with Madness, thank you all for being with us tonight. And we wish you a really nice evening. Hope to see you soon.
Thanks. Thanks, Kat, very much. Great job.
Guys.
Yes, great moderation, Kat. Thank you.